Hi, I'm Jim Munro, and this is Sun Speed. Emerson Fittipaldi says that Formula One has finally found its spiritual home in America. And who are we to argue with a double F1 champion? So, Chris, what can we expect in Austin, Texas this weekend?
Well, Jim, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot, wouldn't you, to bet against a Vettel win?
Indeed.
In which case, I'm a complete buffoon.
I could have told you that beforehand.
Because I put some money on Hamilton.
Right, would you like to explain your lunacy to us?
All right, well, 3 reasons.
Yeah.
Now, Hamilton won there last year, as we can see here. And, you know, it was one of his best races of his career. If you remember, it's the one where he hunted down Vettel and then passed him.
Yeah.
So he clearly loves the track and is going to go well there. That's reason 1. Reason 2 is we get to the end of the season and there's often a kind of shake-up in the perceived order towards the end of the year, because people are starting to think about next year, maybe starting to give up a bit on this year. So you've got the potential for a little bit of a shake-up. 3rd reason for the bet is that I got Hamilton at 16-1. Now, when was the last time you could put a bet on Lewis Hamilton at 16-1?
True.
I mean, you know, it's worth an each-way punt at least, isn't it?
Yeah, well, look, much as it would be great to see him hunt Vettel down again, as he did last season, hate to tell you, but he was in a McLaren last year, and that's a lot faster than his Mercedes is performing at the back end of this season, Chris. So what makes you think he could do it?
Well, you're right, it was a lot faster than his Mercedes, wasn't it, this year? But call it a hunch, if you like. I mean, you know, Vettel is going for his 8th straight win in Austin. And the law of averages tells you that maybe something's got to go wrong at some time, hasn't it? You know, maybe a spin or a car breakage or something like that.
Yeah.
That's one reason. Second reason, I think, is Hamilton's been really beating himself up lately about his performances. He's rated his own performances as poor in the last couple of races, you know. Now, the pattern of Hamilton's career has always been when he starts going on at himself like that, he usually comes up with a cracker in the next race. So, so that's why I think it could happen.
Okay. I've got some more breaking news for you, Chris. There's more than one Red Bull out there.
There is.
There's Mark Webber in a Red Bull. So how's he going to beat Mark Webber as well?
Who's suggesting the Red Bulls are pretty quick?
They're not doing too badly. Bit of a reputation.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, Webber's probably going to be fairly quick, but Webber started talking publicly for the first time about his challenge next year, his new challenge for next year, which is driving for Porsche in Le Mans racing. Yeah. You know, now I think that might mean that perhaps he's not going to be at 100% for the last couple of races this year. Right. Again, might be wrong, but it's another little factor to add in.
Okay. Do you see anybody else being in contention?
Well, Rosberg mainly, maybe. Hamilton's teammate at Mercedes. Grosjean, maybe. He's been going well lately. Yeah. Ferrari seem to be slipping backwards at an alarming rate, so I can't see Alonso fighting anywhere near the front, to be honest. No. You know, and after that, really, who have you got? The McLarens simply aren't fast enough. So, so that's about it, I think. Okay.
Well, look, with the championship sewn up, the action off the track is taking their attention again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the first of the big announcements this week is no more Kimi Räikkönen for the rest of the season.
No more Kimi.
What do you make of that?
Wow, such a messy end to his Lotus career, isn't it? I mean, you've had 4-letter rants and radio exchanges between him and his pit crew. Yeah. You've got a mega pay dispute in which he claims he hasn't been paid a cent this year. You've got Lotus in all sorts of financial trouble, a long saga about whether they're going to be rescued or not. Yeah. It's a right mess. And now we've got Kimi's going to have back surgery this week. And apparently this is a problem that he's been carrying for some 12 years. It goes back to 2001 when he was a rookie with Sauber and had a crash in testing. Now he's finally decided to sort it out. The reason being, of course, is he wants to be completely fighting fit for his Ferrari debut next year. Yeah. So he wants to have the surgery now, get it out of the way, get back to full fitness. Now, it's a hell of a slap in the face for Lotus, obviously, but can you blame the guy? You know, I mean, his employers haven't paid him. You know, I mean, what would you do if your employers hadn't paid you for months on end? You know, you wouldn't feel too well disposed towards them, would
Feels like it sometimes. Well, look, it's not just there that the moving and shaking has changed this week. Felipe Massa has been announced as an arrival at Williams, which personally I'm pleased to see staying in Formula One, although obviously not so competitive. And then perhaps a bit more of a surprise, Kevin Magnussen, potentially McLaren ahead of Sergio Perez. What do you make of that?
Looks like it. Looks like Magnussen's going to get the nod ahead of Perez. And, you know, for me, it's very exciting. Interestingly, the last 2 drivers who made their Formula One debuts with McLaren were Lewis Hamilton and Kevin's dad, Jan Magnussen, who's now a top GT driver. Yeah. Martin Whitmarsh, the team principal of McLaren, describes Kevin Magnussen as lightning quick. He's been very, very impressive in Formula One tests for McLaren and on the simulator, apparently. He's won the Formula Renault 3.5 series in dominant fashion this year. Clearly a great talent.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about it. I think he's going to keep Jenson Button on his toes.
Make that Perez move by McLaren last season look like a bit of a panic buy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. He's just been unconvincing. He's been kind of not a slouch. We can't call Sergio Perez a slouch, but though, as you say, there are a lot of sceptics who thought that the hiring of Perez was just a knee-jerk reaction by McLaren, who didn't probably think it through properly after Lewis announced he was off to Mercedes, including actually our Formula One correspondent Ben Hunt, who's long had a bee in his bonnet about Perez being hired on a whim.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it's interesting to know what's going to happen to Perez now. Like I say, he's no slouch. He just seems to lack those vital last few tenths of a second.
Yeah.
And of course, he's backed heavily by Telmex, the Mexican phone company. And I think we'd all assumed that Telmex was going to be a major sponsor for McLaren next year.
Yeah.
So what happens now? They've actually put off their sponsor announcement from December to January. There may be something to do with it, may not. But maybe Perez will go back to Sauber or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, and your feelings on Felipe Massa going to Williams?
Well, I'm glad that you're pleased, because,
what are you going to say?
because you're a mate. I'm slightly underwhelmed by it, really. I think, like many people in the Formula One paddock, I think Massa's best years might be behind him. And you know, let's face it, unless Williams make a giant leap forward next year, Massa and Williams together, I don't think are going to set the world alight. Having said that, Williams are moving over to Mercedes engines next year, which looks like being, you know, a good move. So who knows? But I'm not exactly going whoa with excitement about it, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, is there something to make you go whoa? Because Red Bull started this all off announcing Daniel Ricciardo taking over.
It seems a long time ago now, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Old news.
Old news. Daniel Ricciardo goes to Red Bull. Yeah.
Anything else exciting in the pipeline, driver-wise?
Well, there's loads of seats up for grabs still. I mean, we're still obviously going through this pay driver or no pay driver scenario. A lot of teams in financial strife. We don't know whether Hulkenberg's going to go to Lotus, whether the Lotus money is actually going to come through finally.
Yeah.
I think it will, and I think Hulkenberg will go to Lotus. So I think it's something like 8 seats still up for grabs. So it's exciting. You know, I think it's going to be a fantastic start to the 2014 season. I mean, you know, bring it on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we bring it on, let's get back to how we started the show, talking about Austin in Texas this weekend.
That race, yeah.
Yeah, remember that?
I do.
You got some good odds from Lewis Hamilton. So what are we looking at for the 1, 2, 3?
Well, I better choose Lewis for the win, hadn't I?
Better had, yeah.
After that, it'd be a bit ridiculous not. I just think, I mean, there is absolutely no logic to this at all, but I just think Red Bull are due a stinker because it happens in Formula One. You know, you have these great runs and then everything kind of goes wrong. Maybe they'll hit each other at the first corner or something. I don't know. You know, I'm not too sure that's going to happen. But let's assume for once it does. Let's be adventurous, and I'll go for a podium of Hamilton, Grosjean and Rosberg.
Marvellous.
I wonder what odds you could get on that.
Yeah. Okay, well, as Mr. Spock would say, the totally illogical Chris Hockley. Thanks very much as always, Chris.
Thank you, Jim.
Now, don't forget you can follow all of this weekend's action from Austin in Texas on The Sun's website at thesun.co.uk/motorsport.